Hi there. I think most of you know me, but if you don't, I'm Jenny Hakula Diaz, or JHD, and I'm the Professional Learning Coordinator at Connecticut Council for the Social Studies. And I'm glad to be here today to share with you a pretty detailed update on year 2 and year 3 of our professional development work. So let's get started. So year 2, which is from October 2022 to November 2023, was a busy year. We offered 162 and a quarter hours of professional development and 56 and a half hours of webinars and workshops. And you might be wondering what is the difference between those categories. We put everything that includes elementary educators into professional development. So whether it's K-12, K-8, K-5, you'll find all of that under PD. We had 2,812 attendees across these sessions that we offered. And we did have one-day events. We had some big ones. We had 2 of our fall annual conferences fall into that year 2 time. We also had a one-day event, our Social Studies Leadership Summit, where 70 districts were in attendance. We had over 150 participants. Along with educators, we had partners including the Connecticut Humanities and Connecticut Democracy Center. And we offered 3 major sessions. One that was an overview of the standards, including examining the vertical articulation of standards across the disciplines. We had an inquiry session, and we also worked with an organization called Close Up on a civil discourse session. And the day was started and ended with words from Professor Hassan Jeffries. In addition to the Leadership Summit, we did have some multi-day sessions, including the June Teachers Institute in 2023. We had 50 plus participants, 45 districts attended. And during that time, because the standards were still in draft form and had not been fully released, we used what we could, what we had available to us to do some work in grade spans to explore the vertical articulation, the disciplines, and we also offered, for the first time ever, a session that was focused on Indigenous studies and presented and facilitated by the 5 state and federally recognized tribal nations in Connecticut. And that was probably the best received part of the entire institute. Later that same summer, in August of 2023, we offered a curriculum sprint focused on Asian American studies. We took one of the new topics in high school U.S. history, and in partnership with UConn's Asian and Asian American Studies, we worked with a group of teachers, high school teachers, on that topic in U.S. history. Topic 7, Foreign Policy, Global Conflicts, and Cultural Shifts, to create inquiry-based, standards-aligned lessons that would come together sort of as a unit with integration of Asian American studies. Also in year 2, we launched a district cohort program, and my purpose in this program was to support districts in planning the implementation of standards rollout and curriculum writing and revision. And each district that participated built a K-12 team that included a central office supervisor, at least one teacher from K-2, from 3-5, 6-8, and 9-12, and then at least one teacher who works in sort of an interdisciplinary across subject areas role, such as an interventionist, multilingual learning specialist, or a library media specialist. We had 6 districts: Meriden, Milford, Berlin, Regional School District 13, South Windsor, and Fairfield participate. So every month we would have a meeting. Every other month was intra-district, so just with one district planning. Every other month was then cross-district conversation and collaboration during that meeting time. Each of those 6 districts are now implementing the work that they did last year with me and doing it in a contextualized way based on their needs and strengths. And one of the big considerations, just to put it out there, was the science of reading legislation. This was a challenge for all of these districts, and was a barrier for some districts to even consider participating in this model. We also launched a 2-year school museum partnership with 6 groups. We went from doing intake interviews where we found out what a local historical society was interested in working on, what was a teacher team interested in working on, did some matchmaking to figure out who would be good pairs, and then launched the let's look at the resources, let's look at what we're trying to build together, and do some collaborative planning for the purpose of building a mini inquiry-based local history unit that would involve some lessons in the classroom, a field trip, often that was a visit to the local historical society. In some cases, it was bigger than that. It was actually like a citywide bus and walking tour that was including the local historical society as one of the stops. And then there were some classroom lessons afterwards as well. And besides supporting with getting people together, collaborating, CCSS also provided bus funding and teacher stipends for the lesson development. And the good news is you can find many of these lessons available on Teach It to take a look and use however is best fit for your context. I'll round out talking about year 2 with, with some of the other sessions we offered. Of course, we offered a lot of intro to standard sessions with RESCs, with districts, with through webinars for people across the state. We also offered a series on elementary economics. We had 7 sessions. The first one was a K-5 overview of the economics standards, and then we offered individual grade level ones with some literacy connections embedded. We offered a multitude of standalone sessions. They were a mix of content and skill sessions. So some examples include East African slave trade, globalization in Connecticut, recruiting students for the Black, African American, Puerto Rican, and Latina elective course, Nat Turner debate on resistance and justice, scaffolding inquiry-based instruction, structured academic controversy. Some of these sessions are also recorded and shared on the CCSS website. We did also record 27 podcasts, and there were plenty of districts who wanted one-off standards 101 sessions, but there were also plenty of districts that were interested in sort of ongoing series of sessions focused on inquiry and or content standards. So we worked with some of the districts we work with in those multiple session series include Bloomfield, Torrington, New Haven, Lebanon, South Windsor, Hartford, Meriden, RSD 13, Fairfield, Milford, CTCS, and Berlin. Okay, so year 3 went from November 2023 and will conclude in June of 2025. And I'm going to give you some so far data. So far, we've had 1,665 attendees across our various sessions. We have had 100.5 hours so far of PD. We do have 162.5 hours planned. And we've had 45.25 hours of webinars and workshops so far, and we have 100 hours planned. We do not have any one-day events taking place during this time period. So I'll start talking about some of the multi-day events. I'll start with the Declaring Freedom Youth Conference, which was a 3-day conference. 2 of those days were devoted to youth learning, as well as teacher professional development. We had 12 districts involved, over 200 students. And before the conference even launched, we had several sessions to prepare youth leaders and teachers for the conference. And all of this was a prelude to the America 250 commemoration that's coming up. More multi-day sessions included in June of 2024, we had another teacher institute focused on curriculum. We had 35 school districts participate. In day 1, there were 80 participants. In day 2, there were 30. And this was in partnership with the New Haven Museum. The goal was to create multiple lessons from K through 12 that were inquiry-based and standards aligned and grounded in the resources and materials from Amistad Retold exhibit, the Shining Light on Truth exhibit, and other related materials that we found in the New Haven Museum's library. And we were successful in creating multiple lessons per grade level K-12. In July, we offered another curriculum institute. This one focused on Asian American and Pacific Islander studies, again in partnership with UConn's Asian and Asian American Studies Institute. We offered this professional learning session. We didn't work with a particular museum. We instead worked with some communities. We took the teachers on a field experience to visit the West Hartford Vietnamese night market. We also brought in some Sikh families in Connecticut and the Muslim Coalition of Connecticut to offer some community-based learning experiences in our classroom. And then we had the same goal to create standards-based inquiry lessons. And we were able to create multiple lessons for most grade levels between 3rd and 12th grade. We did move from the district cohort model and evolve into regional meetings. So this year we are offering several regional meeting opportunities where we'll offer a half day to teachers and a half day to school-based leaders and central office-based leaders. The first one will be in Milford in mid-November, and we are going to offer sessions on several topics, including the standards, including integrating elementary literacy and social studies, K-8 model curriculum, and a session on inquiry and questioning. We also launched another school museum partnership, so 6 new partnerships began this year. This one is in, we are working with the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History. So along with the ones that we launched in year 2, we have this new set. This set is focused on elementary civics. So all of the teacher team partners are in elementary schools across the state. And again, the goal is to write mini units with a local history focus and with a civics focus. So this year we launched partnerships with an elementary school in Hamden and the New Haven Museum, an elementary school in Stonington with Mystic Seaport Museum, an elementary school in Groton with Fort Griswold and the Avery House, an elementary school in West Hartford with Noah Webster House or the West Hartford Historical Society, with Colchester Elementary and the Colchester Historical Society, and with East Haddam Elementary and the East Haddam Historical Society. This is a 3-year partnership, so along with the collaborative planning work, bus funding, teacher stipends for lesson development, you'll see that we're starting to publish some of the lessons on Teach It, so you can go and check those out. And to round out year 3, plenty of intro to standards sessions still going on with the RESCs, with districts, through webinars, excuse me. We do have several series that we've been offering. We have a series of about 10 sessions that we've recorded, focused on Indigenous studies and done in collaboration with the 5 state and federally recognized Indigenous tribal nations in Connecticut. We have been offering starting in the spring, a series of civics sessions focused on civics and teaching the 2024 election. That included a teacher forum to discuss challenges, and we'll be offering those sessions through the inauguration in 2025. We've also launched an Asian American and Pacific Islander Studies webinar series that began last month with a session with Laya Vinyasa. That session was focused on Indian culture through the lens of oral tradition. This month is Filipino American History Month. So we're collaborating with the New Britain Museum of American Art and showing a short documentary on Filipino farm organizing, as well as some photographs from their collection that show life for Asian migrant farmers. And we've had plenty of standalone sessions as well. And we're able to record 18 podcasts so far and have 5 more planned for this year. So that's a lot of detail about years 2 and 3 and what we did for professional development. And I wanted to just share a few thoughts to wrap this up before you go into discussion about what we're going to do beyond June 2025. So beyond year two in sustainability, here are a few thoughts that I have. Continuing the annual fall conference and summer institutes seem to be a must for me. CCSS has a unique opportunity and ability and position to bring together people who are committed to social studies from across the state through these types of convenings and professional learning opportunities. Of course, CCSS has a place in continuing to offer inquiry and content standards development for educators. In terms of the standalone and series webinar workshops, I think this is where there has to be some pretty serious prioritization, including which ones get recorded, which ones get posted, because all of that requires work as well. So thinking about what are the timely topics and what are the evergreen topics and what mix of those topics does CCSS want to offer and can CCSS offer? For me, some of the decisions I made about the series, like elementary economics or indigenous studies, had to do with what are the needs that I was hearing from educators. What's the legislation that's coming out that we can offer support to educators with? So thinking of that balance of timely and or evergreen will be important. I just want to throw out a couple interesting pieces of information about our recordings. So in late June of 2023, Steve, Tony, and I did a Standards 101 session. And we've had since then nearing 450 views of that. And I remember when Steve said to us, well, there are going to be some districts and some schools that use this recording in their PD session. At that time, I was skeptical, but now I'm thinking that maybe he's right, because I have heard from people that they have watched the recording in a PD session at their school or district. So that's potentially sort of an evergreen topic that is worth having a session on and recording. One of the more timely topics that we had a session on in April of 2024, we offered an Eastern Pequot session with the Eastern Pequot Tribal Nation. And that wasn't that many months ago, and that video is nearing 250 views. So again, thinking about the timely versus evergreen, what's the balance of the two in terms of what CCSS pursues each year to offer webinars and workshops is definitely something worth discussing. The regional meetings go with the fall conference and summer institute in my mind in terms of building those long-term connections and collaboration. So I see that as a place where CCSS can continue throughout a school year to support and provide the type of professional development that will help educators across our state. And the last thing that I'll add is something that I'm working on this year is an asynchronous version of the district cohort learning model that I launched in year two, because if we can provide some sort of self-study or independent study documents and materials, put them on our website and share them with districts who need some support and could utilize those to get going on their standards rollout and get going on their curriculum writing or revisions. I think that would be a worthwhile investment of my time for sure. All right, so those were some of my thoughts. And now you all get to have fun and think about what we keep, start, and stop doing at CCSS, thinking beyond June 2025. And also enjoy looking at some of the Teach It plans that the teacher teams worked on with me and with the local historical societies, and have a great rest of your retreat. Thanks so much for listening.